We've been doing a series for the Sunday school program on the days of creation. And today we're talking about the second day of creation. And when we're thinking about this story, the very first part of Genesis, we'll be reading verses 6 to 8 today, about some of the earliest writings that have ever been told. These are really, really ancient documents. And we might ask ourselves, why are we still reading them if they're so old? Well, because they've stood the test of time, for one reason, and people over the thousands of generations have discovered that these teachings have some value. They carry meaning for people beyond just the simple story. And remember what the Lord said in the New Testament when he came on earth to explain all these things? He said, remember, I will only teach to you, I'll only speak to you in parables. Everything he said, certainly in the New Testament, was a parable. It was a story about people or things that contained within it some kind of meaning or lesson. And the same thing's true about the whole of the Old Testament. Why do you think we have these stories about battles and things and one thing another happening? The only reason we care about those things is because the lessons we can learn by saying, these people are like us. They have the same kind of feelings we have. How did they handle that situation? What can we learn from it? So, we also realize that, we talk about the creation story. There's actually two. The one we're doing now, the 7 days of creation, and think what comes right after it. The Lord creating Adam and doing another story of creation. So there are two stories of creation, but we're doing the first one that has the 7 days. Last week, the story was about the first day of creation. First, he created the heavens and the earth, and then light, which was divided from the day and night. And what we're thinking about is, if it's really just a story about the creation of people, think about a brand new baby, just born, and when it opens its eyes for the very first time. Its brain can't figure out what's going on. What it detects is the presence of light. And when it closes its eyes, it's dark. And that's all it can have. But that's where we all start. The first acknowledgement that there is such a thing as light. So, reading on the second day. Then God said, let there be a firmament, or in other words, expanse, in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Well, firmament is really just another word for, like it says, expanse. And it really just means it's a space. Now here's a picture. I should have put this on something hard. Anyhow, there's the picture. And all it is really just a nice sunny day. And what you see down below is there are waters, which are nice and heavy and stuck to the earth by gravity. And then up in the sky, there are things floating around, and that's another kind of water. And so what we see is there's oceans and lakes on the ground and water in the sky, and what it's talking about is this place between the two, where we live. The space between the clouds above and the water below. That's the expanse, that's the firmament. So it goes on to say in verse 7, thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, so the evening and the morning were the second day. Just like to note that the Hebrew word for, Hebrew is just one of the languages that uses the same word for sky and heaven. We do the same thing in English. When it's raining really hard, we say, the heavens opened up. We frequently use the same word in different languages for sky or heaven. And we talk about how the angels are in heaven. They're up in this, an idea. We point to the sky. And the thing is, it's the same word, so we just have to figure out whether it's the spiritual concept or whether we're just talking about clouds by the context. Well, following this idea that this is a creation about the human mind, this picture is of the human mind, the little baby. They first see just light. And very quickly they begin to distinguish other things. We know that one of the first things they can learn to distinguish and respond to is their mother's face. The firmament, the light and the darkness begins to be infilled with something specific, to be able to distinguish one kind of water from another. That's a rational decision. That's an idea. It's the first creation of these human thoughts that are in the mind that are really important for us to be able to deal with in the world. That division. The baby recognizing that there's another person there, it's their mother, and they often respond with a smile. This is the basis of recognizing different objects in the world and seeing how they fit together. It's the foundation of all that's going to come. Well, it's important for us to know that God created the world around us and all the things in it. He did it in an orderly way. And we can discover this by studying how the things of the world and nature relate to each other. But perhaps the most important thing about all this is to think about, well, why? What's the reason behind this? He created the world so that there would be a place for people to live, to learn, to make choices, and prepare themselves for eternal life in heaven. All of this, everything in the created universe, is for the sake of having a heaven created from or created for his people. It's a lot to think about. But that's what we're thinking about, is this step going on. As we go through the steps of creation, think about how each step shows something, an improvement of a person's mind going from first day of birth through adult life. That's what we're looking at, this progression, all these different things happening. Possibly that would explain why light was created on the first day and the sun, moon, and stars on the fourth. It's not a science textbook. So, creation for the sake of a heaven from the human race. This is the Lord's doing, and it's wondrous.